Hey Katta, today we are going to talk about basal test.
Oh, no, 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 no. Don't do that to me. Not a surprise test. I'm not ready. No, please.
No, Katta, we are not at school, but let's start from the beginning. So, do you remember basal?
Sure. You mean the episode linked right now?
Yeah, folks, you will want to take a look if you need a refresher. Okay, so in the previous episode, we talked about CC library and CC binary and other rules that were coming from RuleCC. And in this case, we're gonna take a look about CC test. This is another rule, and this rule lets you define the test. So you give it a name, you give it a source file which contains the test, some dependency, and the size. The size is going to define how many resources the tool is going to allocate to this specific test. So to better understand if it is going out of memory or is using too much CPU, or it's also going to change the timeout that is expected from this type of test. So if it takes too long, it's going to shut it down earlier.
Okay, this lets you define a test, but how do you actually write one?
Okay, so well, let's actually write the test. First of all, we're going to use Google Test, which is one of the supported libraries that let you write tests. And well, what you do is that you add it to your dependencies, and then you go into your test, you include gtest.h, and you start writing your test. Every test is defined with, you guessed it, the test macro. It contains a test name, which is the series of tests that are testing some library, some utility, some system, and the test case, which generally describe what is your expectation on what is happening or what you are testing. And the easiest thing you can do is that you can mark a success or a failure. And well, if we go and we try it out, we can do basal test and on run our test. You can see it, we'll see that it will fail. But why did it fail? Basal test is extremely useful when you're running a lot of tests, and so you want to see them separately here. But if you want to go into the details of a failure, you can go and use run, do the same thing, and in this case, you will actually see the failure. We actually have two of them, and well, they were called should fail, so it makes sense. And this is the test. This is actually what it was supposed to do because both of these tests were calling fail directly. In that case, you can skip the test by using ggtest skip because I mean, I don't want to want my test to pass for now, and these tests are probably broken right now. So let's go. We run it again, and everything
Magic.
passes. Yeah. Please don't do this. Well, let's say that IV is an integer value that is the output of the system that you're testing. Don't write your own match your logic. You want to use some utility, which is called, well, an expectation. There are various
Just
expectations
thinking
that
about
will,
to do it.
yeah.
I'm
So
joking.
you can go and write, for example, expect true. So you're expecting that this value, the Boolean value, is true or false. You can actually put an expression in there. And there are many, like equal, not equal, and so on and so forth. They work with integers, they work with strings, they work with containers, they work with your
Okay.
custom types. In your case, your custom type need to have the operators, the comparison operators there. I can wait for C++20 to remove this thing because right now it's running in C++17 mode. And one small thing to consider here is that let's change this for a second. So let's break the test on purpose and expect equal, and all these macros end up expecting an equality between the two values, but there is no test value under test and no expectation. So it says that expectation is that you have an equality between the two values. That is not great. I mean, there are cases in which you have two values, which are two outputs, and you expect them to be equivalent or different, and there is not actually an expectation and a value. But in most cases, you actually have an expectation. So this is why this is a potentially bad test. Let's go to a good test. So expect true and expect false are still good, but you can spell them as expect that value is true, or expect that expression is false. And you have so this thing on the side is called a matcher. And so when you go, for example, for equal, you can say expect that integer value is equal to 1. So this is called a matcher. And in this case, it's a matcher that tests the equality with some value. You have many
So
other...
you read the test better than the other.
Exactly. It's way more readable. But the other thing is that when you fail, you will notice that the error is actual. Oh, because I'm running the wrong test. So I need to run the right test. So when the test fails, the error is way more readable. It's going to say, I was expecting that the value of IV is expected to be equal to 2, and the actual value is 1. So when inevitably in a couple of years a test starts failing, it's way more obvious what were you expecting and what was the actual value. And again, this works for integers, strings, containers, custom types, and so on and so forth.
All type of,
Yeah. For strings, we even have more advanced matchers. I'm not going into details, but for example, we have substring or start and you can go in documentation and see which ones are available. Generally, before writing something custom, go in the library. Probably there is already something that is doing what you want. And then, let's move to containers. Well, here we are checking the size of the container, and then we're checking that the values have an expected value. Do you see a problem here?
You could have an access problem if you have less than 5 elements, I suppose.
Yeah. If the elements are 4 and you access the 5th element, that's a problem. This is it's an undefined behavior. I mean, depending on the compilation mode and so on and so forth, it may crash or it may run some actually undefined behavior. You want to prevent that. You don't want your entire system, your entire test to crash.
Absolutely.
So what you want to do here is use an assertion. So it has exactly the same spelling as expectations, but if you have an assertion, if they fail, they will stop the test from continuing. So if this fails, the rest doesn't run. So in that case, we are effectively defending against these undefined behaviors. One problem is that still bad. This is still bad. We have utilities for containers. So you have elements R. Yeah, elements R, which you give it the values that you're expecting, or elements are array if the values need to be constructed in some special way, you don't want to put them in line, or if they are a lot. You can do unordered checks, which is good for sets or for other stuff. You can do set operations, so a subset is superset.
So you have a lot of helpers to use the collection. Yeah,
there are many matchers. Go and look at the available matchers before continuing. And then we have this special guy here, which is each greater than.
Okay, clear.
So, I mean, it feels like I'm matching against a matcher. But no, this is actually a high order matcher. So it takes a matcher and changes its meaning. So for example, each transforms a greater than into each value needs to be greater than. There is not. There is any of, which takes multiple matchers and checks that at least one passes. Again, look at the library. There are many others. There are values for optional you don't want to assert before doing stuff. There are values for variant where you can check that it contains specific type, and then in that case it goes. So again, look at the library and try to see if there is something already available for you.
Okay, but just to make the all more interesting. What if I have some complex initialization logic, for example, and I would like to share between that I would share between different test cases?
Okay, well, specifically for this situation, you can use test fixtures. And in that case, if you're using a fixture, you can go and use test f. And the first value, instead of being just a name, now it becomes actually the name of a class, which is your fixture. And this class needs to inherit from test, from testing test, which is the definition of a test. And in this case, we have this really complex text fixture that we need to share, and where we have some magic number in it. So you can go, and now all these test cases will have access to the fixture, and so all the methods of the fixture are available, and so you can go and get your magic number. So think this could be some complex system that you needed to set up, and now you can have multiple test cases that go and share this. Personal opinion, unless you really need this is often overkill, and it creates some issues, because then maybe you want to share this fixture, and so you go and you share it, but someone else now needs to build around it and needs to add some additional stuff, and so he tries to use it as a base class and blah 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 blah. So in general, my suggestion is build utilities. If you need this, just build them, and don't make them a test fixture. Again, personal opinion. And just allocate them in your test. Is one extra line, is not that expensive, but you can go and just use it, and you can have multiple utilities. If your test needs many of them, you can have composed utilities, and you can do whatever you want. Or you could even go and share these utilities. So let's say that we have our shared test support utility. Well, we need to go and at this point actually define it in as a CC library. The nice property, you can mark it as test only, so that the system will allow you to use it only in tests and not in production code. And then you can go and just include it, and you can use it. So personal suggestion, try to avoid testf unless you are working in a framework that already uses it, or if you really want to use it.
What if I want to run the same series of tests with different values? Should I use a loop?
Okay, please don't use a loop in these cases. What you want to use is a test P, which is a parameterized test. So in this case, what you want to build is a suite. It's necessary. It's a test suite, and this is a class that inherits from test with param, and all the test cases that you defined with it end up being a template for a test. And you will notice this get param, which is there and gives you the value. You can have multiple test cases for the same test suite, and they will all be run for every value. How do you pass the different values? You can use the initialize test suite P, in which you give it a name to this specific instantiation. You give it the name of the suite because it is what you are instantiating, and then you can pass handpicked values, or you can pass a range of values, and it will just go through them. Or you can even pass a formatter, which takes the test case and provides a human readable name, because if you go and notice here, by default, they're getting called 0, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah.
Not really useful. You can go and give it a better name.
It's better with a good name. But what if I have a more complex type of data? Now you are using number, but I can pass also complex data structure or other?
You can put any type. I mean, this is templatized, so you can put anything.
Okay.
You can put simple types. You can put structs. You can put tuples. You can put classes. You can put potentially big objects, and it's just going to instantiate all of them instantiate the test for all of them and run it for all of them. So if you have some weird, not weird, some complex scenario where you need to set up some environment and you need to set up some input, and these are all repetitive and just depend on a few set of parameters, you can go and inject even potentially complex environments or potentially content test cases and just go and run all of them over all these configurations.
Okay. This is all nice and clear, but could we write a real test?
Let's do it. Okay, so this is a real world example. We have this moving sum is a common operator that is used in statistical analysis or for control systems.
Mhm.
And this is implemented as we have two input iterators, a beginning and end. We have an output iterator, and what it's doing is just taking the last two elements of the input and emitting their sum into the output. So we go and we write a test for it. And well, simple test. We're going to say what happens if we have just one element. Well, we expect nothing because it's a moving average. So for one element, we don't have any output. But again, we are creating a test input. We're creating some storage where to put the output, and we're calling our utility. And then we write our expectation. So we expect that the output is empty. Generally, this test should be relatively small and should be in this scenario and easy to read, because I mean input, execution and output, expectation on the output. It's the general case. For here we are going and we are testing another test case where we are actually giving it enough data, and then we're calling it, and we're checking that the outputs are the expected values. And then, as you have noticed, this function is templatized, so it's using generics, and so we are going to check that this works with floats. We are checking that this works with doubles. We are checking that it works with custom types, and in this case, we are checking plus and equal. And we are checking also imbalance of types. So the input can be an integer, but we want the output as a double. You have noticed that the input and the output types are not the same. And here we're checking. We have checked up so far always random access iterators, or specifically contiguous iterators. We want to check what happens if the input is a sequentially it's a forward iterator. We want to check if the output is a forward iterator.
Okay, all good and clear. But what's next?
Well, there are many interesting topics remaining. We could talk about how to organize your tests. We could talk about how to deal with flaky or order-dependent tests. We can talk about mocks and, well, how to use them to mock dependencies. And we could, but we are out of time for today. It's time to go.
See you next time, folks.